Hi everyone, happy Monday. So excited to be here with you today. We made it to the end of January, and I don't know what you guys think, but I feel like this January went by faster than other Januaries. I feel like January is usually like 3 months long, and then it speeds up from there, but this month felt fast, and it already concerns me as far as the speed of the rest of the year. Like, does anybody have breaks? What's going on? All right, well, now that my very initial ramble is done, hi everybody. I'm Bev McCullough of Flamingo Toes, and I'm super excited to be here with you guys today to work on another section in our Melody Lane quilt. So this is Melody Lane behind me here, and it is the quilt one of the quilts I designed to go with my Melody fabric collection. It has cute little birdhouses and star blocks and flower blocks. and they all come together to make this really sweet quilt. And it works out great that we're sewing it in January because now we have all the fun of sewing with flowers and birds every week, and it's cold and icky outside, though it's better than it's been, let's all admit, at least here. Well, I'll admit Tennessee's better, okay? But it's been lovely. This week's supposed to be really nice, so I'm excited about that. But it puts me even more in the mood to sew with birdies and flowers. So it's going to be a fun week. And this week we are sewing up the star blocks, which is an Ohio star, kind of an iconic quilt block. And it was a quilt block until I started making them that I was really nervous about. And I'm going to walk you through all the steps of sewing this together so you don't feel trepidation or anything like that. We're just going to dive in and have a really good time. We're not going to worry about our star points because we're going to, do our best. And if they get cut off a little bit, well, can you see my star points from this point? No, probably not. And they're fine. I'm just saying, like, really in the big scheme of things, it's not important. So let's see who's here now that we've had our counseling session for the day. Oh, Teresa's here. I'm excited. She's just been working on birdhouses and 4-patch blocks. That's awesome. Patty's here. She loves Ohio Star blocks. Yay, Patty. And Ruth is here. She has her birdhouse blocks done, so clapping for Ruth. Good job. Chloe and Kimberly's here. She says it's sunny in Missouri. It's lovely in Tennessee right now, so that's nice. Cynthia is here from Chicago. Pamela, she loves star blocks of all kinds. I'm kind of with you there, Pamela. I'm a sucker for a star block. And Marie's here from the Keys. Jackie and Melissa, sunny today in Melissa, sorry about that, in Indiana. Helen is here. Oh, a break in the freezing temps. I thought you were saying back to freezing temps, but we have a break. That's good. Teresa says she's nervous about the star block because she always seems to lose a star point or two. Well, we're not going to worry about that, are we, Teresa? We're going to do our best to make sure that you're able to keep all your points. And Joy is here. I'm so glad you're here, Joy. Leslie is here, and Helen. Kimberly says, bring on spring. Amen, sister. Tina's here. She made it on time. Her alarm worked. Okay, so Tina, are you a subscriber? Because if you're a subscriber, you get the little notification when I go live. So that sometimes helps. It's a fun little, extra bonus reminder. Helen says the birds have been very busy. And Ruth says snow is finally starting to melt. Yay. And let's see, Sandra. So Marie's changing her quilt up a little bit, and she's making 13 star blocks, and she has 11 done. So are you changing your star blocks? Are you changing your birdhouse blocks out for star blocks? I think you told me you were doing that. So are you leaving the little flower box? Because I love that idea, and you have to show your finished quilt in the Facebook group when you're done, because we definitely want to see that. Hi, Linda. Okay, and speaking of the Facebook group, I have it linked in today's video description. It's always linked in in whatever video description you're looking at, so you can find it easily. But I do have a Facebook group, and I know not everybody's on Facebook. But if you are, I have a group where we have a lot of fun, and we share our blocks and things. And I haven't seen a lot of Melody birdhouses, there's been a few, but please share your blocks, even if you feel like they're not perfect. We would love to see them and cheer you on, even if you're not sewing with Melody fabric. That's totally fine. But we would really love that. So please, if you're not already in the group, join and share. And if you are in the group, let's take some photos, people. Val's here. Oh, she's sick. Oh, Val, I'm so sorry. I hope you feel better soon. Very sad. Okay, so Marie says she's making the flower blocks, but she's making it a Christmas quilt and Christmas adventure. Okay, love that. Super fun. All right, y'all. Are you ready to see this fun block? Look how cute it is. This is the Ohio Star block. And I realized after I made it that I used different prints than are in the quilt like shown, and that's okay because it's my quilt, so that's fine. But this is the cute Ohio star. So we're going to make just a regular traditional Ohio star. And if you haven't already made one of those before, or if you're not comfortable with it, this is the method that you're going to make any Ohio star, right? So you'll change your measurements based on your quilt, but you can always refer to this video if you need to. And then we added a little bit of sashing around the outside of the star so that it would be the same size as our other blocks. And also, I just wanted that star to float a little bit in the quilt. I didn't want it to be as big as the birdhouses, and I didn't want it to go right up to the chain. So there's my reasoning. You get a little behind the scenes. So this is our fun block. It's really bright in here, y'all, today because I don't even have the lights in my room on. It's just sun, and I have the curtains closed. So I apologize if it's too bright in here, but maybe you can see it a little bit better there. So that is our cute Ohio star block. So here's what we need to make this. We're going to just dive in. I hope you're ready. Are you ready to sew? Yay. Okay, so Cindy says she never fusses about perfection because anyone who is receiving one of her quilts will be happy with the gift. Yay, Cindy. That's a very good attitude. Okay, so we have the center of our star. That's the A piece, and I'm using the, sorry, rattling outside the room. I'm using the main as the center on most all of these. Yes. So, so this is the main floral print in Melody, and it is the background. So feel free if you're using other fabrics to change up whatever you'd like. You know, if your fabrics are darker, then you'll want like kind of a lighter center. If your fabrics are pretty light, then maybe a darker center to pop. So you have options. So that is the A piece. Then we need kind of a contrasty center. So that forms kind of the diamond. It's these pieces. So that is our B piece. Then our C piece is the points of the star. So I'm using this blue floral, and you can see those all here. And I know it's kind of overwhelming with all the like triangles and they're facing weird directions and stuff, but we're gonna figure that out. And then you also need a D piece, which is your background fabric. And I'm using, for the background on this quilt, it's Dainty Daisy. It's my vintage pastels. So the colors of the daisies are all pink and yellow and blue and green and just soft, pretty colors. So it goes really well with Melody. So that's what we need to form these blocks. So we're going to do those first. Well, we don't need these yet, so we're going to put that to the side. But here's what we need. We need the C pieces, the B piece, and the D piece. And so I want you to draw a diagonal line on the wrong side of the B and D pieces. Okay? And so you're going to put them right sides together with the C pieces, just like this. And you can see here the marked line. There we go. And we're going to make half square triangles. So I'm going to take these over to the machine, and we're going to sew a 1/4 inch seam on the left and right sides of this line, and we're going to do both of these at the same time. So I'm going to take them to the machine, and we're going to sew on both because we like chain piecing. It saves us time, and it's super helpful. Kimberly says it would be fun to fussy cut the center of the star. Absolutely. And Ramona's here. Ramona, yay! And Leslie says she's using the cream bird fabric in the center. Fun, Leslie, cute. And Pamela loves Dainty Daisy for the background. So springy. Yay. All right, let's go sew. All right. You guys ready to sew? I have to get in my chair here. Okay. So now I have I have the background fabric with that blueprint, and I have this pink fabric with the blueprint. I had to shimmy my computer mouse there a little bit so I could see your comments over here too. And we're going to sew a 1/4 inch seam on the left and right sides of our marked lines. So unlike stitch and flip blocks, we're doing half square triangles here. So I'm just going to
sew on both sides of those lines. And I'm going to chain piece these. So I've sewed the print one. Now I've got the background one, and I've just popped that under there. And you can do this with all of your star blocks. Like, get them all ready, cut them out, and then just make an assembly line and sew them all at the same time. So I'm just going to flip these around, and now I'm sewing on the other side of that marked line. So that chain piecing just makes it so that you can do more sewing in a sitting, and you're not up and cutting and pressing at each point, and it just speeds things up just the littlest bit. And if we're doing the same thing over and over again, we like speeding things up, even if it's just a little bit. So now I've got my seam on both sides of that marked line. I'm just going to cut these apart with those little chain threads, and now we're going to go cut these apart and press them.
Okay, here we are. We have our little half square triangles. And I'm going to pull the wool mat over here just a little bit. Well, maybe not quite that far, because we got to cut these apart first. All right, let's see. Ruth says she's not very creative. She's making her quilt exactly like the pattern. Ruth, you need to take that back right now, because if you are sewing and you are creating, it doesn't matter if you're following someone else's pattern, you're being creative, because there are a bajillion people who don't know how to quilt yet that look at the fact that you're even quilting and think that what you're doing is just darn amazing. So I want you to not think that you're not being creative. You just are making it the way you want to make it, right? It just happens to be the way it's shown. I do that a lot. If I see something and I love it, there's no reason for me to change it just so I feel different. It's fun to make something someone else has done and admire that. I'm not trying to be like braggy here. I'm just saying, don't think you're not being creative. Okay? We're having all the counseling sessions today. All right, so I've laid my two half square triangles here together. I've laid them on top of each other, kind of going into pilot mode here. And I made sure that the corners are all lined up, and I'm going to cut them in half at the same time. Again, another little time saver. If you don't feel confident doing this, or you feel like you're not going to get your pieces cut accurately, then do them one at a time. It doesn't matter. There's no hard and fast rule there. So now I have two triangles, half square triangles with the pink and blue. And we're going to press these in just a second. And we have two that have the background and the blue. Okay. And I know you're looking at this going, wait, how do we get these all together? But I'll show you in just a second. So let me get the iron over here. There we go. Trash can was sitting on the iron. It's rude. So I'm going to press towards the darker fabric, which in this case is my blue, on both of these, all four of these. So I'm going to press these. All right, let's see. Cindy says, where can I find the schedule for these videos? So during a sew along, Cindy, I am always live on Mondays at 2 p.m. Sometimes there are other videos that I do. In fact, after we do this sew along, I'm going to do a fun video showing my next fabric collection called Berry Market. And so the best way to get notified of those extra ones are to subscribe to the channel. But also, if you have checked out my website, flamingotoes.com, I post every week of a sew along, what we are doing for that week and that kind of thing. But videos are almost always Mondays, 2 p.m. Central Time. Okay, Lorraine says she's loving her birdhouses. The yellow and dark blue in this line are fantastic. Yay! And Joy says she's doing her Riley Blake challenge block while listening to me. Yay! Vicky asked if I have a laser guide on the machine, and I do, and I love it. It's just about my favorite little friend. So if I'm doing a stitch and flip block, I don't actually have to, because those you sew on the line, I don't have to mark those lines. So it does speed up things for me. It's if you're interested, it's a Baby Lock crescendo machine, and I love it. Okay, so now we have 2 little half square triangles that look like this and 2 like this. So now we need to sew these together again and cut them into even more pieces. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to take one of the half square triangles that is background and print, and we're going to place these right sides together with one that is the light print and the dark print. So this one, I'm sorry, I should use letters. This is D and C, and we're going to place it right sides together with B and C. But we're doing it so that the blue pieces, hello, let's just do that. So the blue pieces are opposite each other. So I want your blue pieces, to not be touching. So we're going to do that for both of these. And we need to draw a diagonal line. And it might be a little bit, excuse me, a little bit hard for you to see that line on the camera, but I'm just going to show you here. So here is our background. I've got this side up because it's a little bit easier to see. And so I'm going to place my ruler so that it's corner to corner, just like before when we did those half square triangles. And I'm going to draw my diagonal line, but I'm drawing it opposite that seam allowance we already have. So you can see my line goes this way, but our seam allowances go this way. So one more time, we're going to pull this up, and I'm going to make sure when I go to the machine that I have these as tightly centered as possible before sewing, but don't need to worry too much about that for the line. The other thing you'll note is I did not trim these before this step, so you don't have to. We're going to trim them after this step, so you don't have to worry about perfect half square triangles. You're just going to make your half square triangles, and then we're going to put them together and sew them again. So we're making magically extra half square triangles. Okay, yay. All right, so I'm going to take these to the sewing machine, and we're going to sew.
Maureen says, I am so in love with this fabric. You just made my day, Maureen. Thank you. Okay, so now that I'm over here, before I sew, I really want to make sure that my 2 seam allowances are really nested, and that's why we pressed both seams towards the dark fabric, because I knew that they would then be opposite each other. So when we put these 2 together, that we really want to make sure with our thumbs that those seams, especially in the center, are as close to touching as you can get them. And doing that ensures that the center, like diamond of the Ohio Star block, has really nice clean seams. So we're going to do that, and we're going to do the same thing that we did before, and we're going to sew a 1/4 inch seam on either side of our marked lines. And we're doing them both at the same time because we like saving time. So I'm sewing one of these, and you can see it's off here a little bit. I'm not worrying too much about that because I am going to trim these later, and it's more important to me to have this seam right up here touching. So it's not too big of a deal. It's not a stressing situation. So I'm now put the other one under there, and we're going to sew that on that side. And then we're going to flip our little blocks around, and we're going to sew on the opposite side of that marked line. And we're sewing right over that seam allowance. And then when we cut these up, you'll be like, wow, this is amazing. I love an Ohio Star because I love the, you feel like you're just doing some really weird things, but then all of a sudden you cut them apart and you're like, this is magical. Obviously, I am highly entertained by this sort of thing, but that's good because this is my job. Okay, so now we're going to cut apart those cute little half square triangles, and we're going to go cut these apart again.
Okay, so here we are. We've sewn our little seams. You can see that seam on either side of the marked line. So now we're going to trim these in half, just like that. And then we will have the beginnings, well, the basics of our Ohio Star pieces. So I'm going to set this to the side. 1 second. So look how pretty, you guys. Isn't this fun? So you can see right here, and I haven't pressed these yet, but getting those seam allowances really nested up tight makes it so that this seam right here and these points right here match up really well. So you have a really nice tight seam allowance, and those points look really good. So, and I assume you guys got all quiet. So I assume you're just like, wow, this is my favorite thing, or are you confused? So let me know in the comments if you're like, yay, I'm getting it, or do that all again. So we're gonna press these, and I do like to press these seams open. It's fairly bulky right in here, so I like to press these open. We're not going to stress if these aren't perfect squares, because remember, we're going to trim them. So I'm just going to run my iron here through that block and kind of separate it out, and then press on the front side so it's nice and flat. And we'll do that 3 more times. So, and having nails really helps get those get those seams open. If you don't have nails that you want to sacrifice to your iron, then you can use like a point turner. Those work really well and give you a little bit of distance in between your fingers and your iron. Or you can use like a small iron too that works really nicely. You know, sometimes those have a little bit smaller points. So Pamela says, watching make the stars. She gets lost in watching. Well, that's good. Okay, so there's that. And, well, this is a slippery little guy. And we need to do one more press here. And just making sure that those seam allowances are nice and flat. And then we will flip our block, and we have these nice, pretty little stars. Okay, don't they look cute? Yay! Lauren says it's a good refresher. That's awesome. Does the wool mat seem to help when ironing my blocks? Yes, Kimberly, I love my wool mat. In fact, if I go on a treat, I take a smaller wool mat because I feel like it gives it a little bit of cushion. I'm not fighting the hardness of my ironing board cover. It keeps my ironing board cover from looking horrible. Because a lot of the heat, you know, is spent on the mat, and it's just, I like having that give there. So I do love my wool mat. Okay, so now we need to trim. And I'm not doing these. You guys know that I like to trim half square triangles 2 at a time, but we're not doing that with these because we have all these seams and we want to make sure that we are trimming them correctly, because some of what helps us not lose our star points happens right now. Because if we trim them well, then they should be okay to put together into our 9-patch block. So we're going to trim these down to 3.5 by 3.5. And again, if you don't have the Melody Lane pattern, you can get that at the link in my video description. So get that to get all the measurements that you need. So I need to have 3.5 by 3.5. We're going to shimmy this baby over a little bit here so we have a little bit more room. So what I'm doing is I'm using my Creative Grids ruler that has the diagonal line, and this is a 6.5. You can use any size, but I do like trimming with a little bit smaller ruler because I feel like I have a little bit more control. Whereas with a big ruler or a long like 6 by 24, it's bulky and you're having to kind of fight the ruler. So if you have, these aren't inexpensive, I know that, but if you have the budget to get even like a 6.5, that'll give you a little bit more control in your trimming. So I need to cut this to 3.5 by 3.5, but I want to make sure that I'm cutting it evenly. So what I'm going to do is that dreaded math. We're going to do 3.5 by 3.5, so divided by 2, which gives us 1 3/4. So what I want to do is find the 1 3/4 mark on my ruler, and I want to line that up with the center for where my background, because it's the easiest one to see, to where my background meets. So where those blue prints meet each other, I've put the 1 3/4 line right here, and that makes it so that I'm going to trim off evenly. So I've got this diagonal line, or at least I should, following right on the seam between this block and this block, this half square triangle and this half square triangle, and I've got this little 1 3/4 mark, and they come to like a little V, so it's 1 3/4 this way and 1 3/4 this way, right at the center. So I'm going to trim 2 sides. I've kept my fingers back from the edge of the block, so I'm just trimming these 2 ends off. And now I'm going to flip this around, and because I did all the work at making sure that was correct to start, when I line this back up, it should work the same way. So we've got this line on this diagonal that's marked here. We've got the 1 3/4 at the point right here, and it's perfect because now this is going to end right here and this is going to end right here, so we won't lose any points. So again, trimming 2 off at the same time. And now we have the cutest little half square triangle magic square thing. I don't know what the term for this is. Clearly by my insane little rambling there. So we have 2 half square triangles sewn together. The points are nice and, pretty close to the tip at least. And then this is nicely centered in the center. Centered in the center. So we're going to do that a few more times really quick. And and then we are going to assemble our block. So this is in my way. So I'll just speed that up again. Make sure it does just take a little bit of time to center everything, and make sure you're doing it, lined up. And that's why we don't do 2 at once, because it's a little bit more important here. You can also get a little cute rotary thing. And it's important to get everything lined up as best you can, so that when you go to sew these together, you're in as best place as you can possibly be for not losing your star points. Does that all make sense? Does anybody else have great tips about these little guys? You can always leave tips in the comment section. I don't feel like super strongly about people, like I don't have to run this whole show. All right, let's see. Cynthia says easy peasy. Leslie asks, could you use the clearly perfect slotted ruler to square up these? Leslie, I don't have one of those, so I don't know. I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't have one of those. If someone else has one and you guys have used them to square these up, then dive in and let us know. I almost trimmed that really weirdly. We don't want that. Okay. So once we have these all trimmed, all the tricky part is done, because I have a little foot. We don't want that. I guess it's an ear, isn't it? That can go away. So once we have these trimmed, then we're easy peasy, and we are just basically going to sew together a 9 patch, which is awesome and so fun. So all the hard work's at the beginning, and then it's just like lazy Sundays. So just making sure I'm all lined up here. because I don't want to be talking and make a mistake and then be like, ah. Okay, so here's our cute little guys. No more trimming is happening. Yay for that. Okay, so now we're going to build out our 9 patch. So I have the A piece, and we're going to put these cute little babies that we just trimmed up on either side of all those pieces, and we want that B contrast print to all be facing in towards the A piece, because then that forms that diamond that's in the block. And then you are going to need E pieces that go on each corner, just like that. And voila! We're French too. We have a very darling little 9 patch that we're going to go over to the machine and we're going to sew together. You can sew this however you'd like. You can sew it together in rows like I have in the instructions, or you can do some little chain web piecing, and that's what I'm going to show you guys at the machine right now. So let's go over to the machine and sew.
Okay. Okay. So Pamela says she has a 3.5-inch Creative Grids ruler. She will be using it. That's perfect. Oh yeah, I'm glad you guys like it. Ruth says she has the June Taylor Perfect Half Square and Quarter Square Triangle Trimmer. Okay. And Tessa says she hasn't received her fabric yet, so she feels like she's going to be so far behind. Oh, Tessa, please don't feel like that. There's no like end date that you're penalized if you're not sewing at the same time as everyone else. The videos are going to stay available for you to watch whenever you would like, so don't stress. And if I sent you the fabric and it's for some reason delayed, send me an email and we'll see if we can figure out where it is. Okay. So I'm going to rebuild my little guy right here so you guys can see it. And that way we can work with this in a nice visual. Okay. So here's our block. Let's not do that. So the other reason I like to kind of assemble it before I sew it together is I'm going to chain piece this, and the advantage of doing that is once you do that, you're less likely to turn a row upside down or turn a block upside down. You can kind of look at your block all pieced out or all laid out here together and be like, okay, this is the way it's supposed to be. And we feel confident with that. So what we're going to do is we're going to take these first 2 pieces, we're going to put them right sides together, and we're going to sew. And and we're doing, you know, our regular 1/4-inch seam allowance, which enables us to have those nice star points when we sew them to other things. I always like to pause a minute and make sure I'm not doing my weird things to my seam allowances. So now I'm going to stop, and I am going to take the next 2 in that row, and I didn't cut my thread, and I'm going to sew those together. And so we're just going to continue kind of building out the block this way. Don't cut your thread. Take the first 2 in the last row, turn them right sides together. Make sure that you're turning the pieces the way they are shown. And we're going to sew these together. And we have our last column here, sitting here waiting to be used. And now I'm going to cut my thread. So what we're doing is we're going to open this back out. And so this is the first row. I'm going to take the last piece from the first row and I'm going to sew that in place. So you have some fabric here that's kind of wandering, so make sure you don't get, it doesn't get in your way. But you'll be happy you did this once we've sewn all these in place. So finishing out the first row there. Oops, not going to cut my thread, but we're opening out the second row, and I'm taking this piece and turning it this way. Oh, I messed up my little pressing. We'll fix that when we sew. And we're sewing that in place. We're just gonna kind of fix that in post-op. Okay, and then opening up the last row, and then we'll take this little background piece and sew that in place. And the beauty of this little method, now we can cut our threads, is that when you open this out, you have built the whole block and it's held together by those little web piecing. So you can see it doesn't come apart. So when we go to sew the rows together, you're not going to flip your row accidentally or anything weird like that. As long as you've made sure everything lays together nicely, then it is just kind of an easy way to not make mistakes. So let's take this over and press, and then we'll come back and we'll sew these little rows together.
Okay, so here's our block. Doesn't it look so cute? So now we're going to flip it over here onto our wool mat. And we're going to press. And we're going to press the block. I have to do it sideways. So this is how my brain works and how my hand works. So I've turned the block sideways. You can see that there is little chain threads between each row, and we're going to press it exactly like the pattern instruction shows, so you don't have to worry if you're doing this that you have to change anything pressing wise. So these two, this row and this row, are getting pressed out, and this row is getting pressed in, and it's not hard to do with your little web pieces there. You're just going to kind of be careful as you go and sort of hold and move the block as you need to. So I'm just kind of pulling the pieces apart here a little bit so I don't end up with weird bulkiness. And we had a seam. There we go. I think we fixed everything. So I'm just going to kind of make sure that's all pressed nicely. Then I'm going to flip the block this way and do the same thing as press on the front side. So I'm just sort of making sure that my pieces are nice and flat and I don't have any extra fabric in those seam folds. So that is how you press it, and then you can look at the block and be like, okay, this is going to make sewing together these rows really easy, and I'm not going to mess them up because all you have to do is flip the first row down onto the center, sew it, then we'll lift that up and sew the bottom row, and you don't have to trim those little threads yet. You don't even have to trim them at all unless you're pressing the seams open. So we'll talk about that in a minute. But I am going to take this back and we'll sew our two rows together.
Okay, here we are. So you don't have to pin these in place unless you really want to. Those chain pieces are going to hold it pretty close. But if you feel like you really want to make sure those seams line up nicely, then you just want to make sure that you've pulled those seams that are nesting together as close as you can get them. And then you're going to sew. So we're just going to sew this is sewing the first row to the middle row, and I'm making sure I'm not bunching up my seam allowances. That does cause a problem and make things bulky, so you want to avoid that if you can. And I don't like sewing over pins because it seems like a good way to cause you and your machine a problem. I know there are pins that you can sew over. They're like, what's that brand? Magic pins? Does anybody have those? Do you guys sew over your pins if you use magic pins? Still makes me nervous. So now I have opened up that first row from the second row, and you can see, because we press those seams opposite, how well those center pieces line up, and it's really making a really pretty little diamond. So we're going to do the same thing on this side. And we're going to nest those little seams together and make sure that they look pretty in this row. So now we're sewing the bottom row to the middle row and lining all that up, and off we go. I'm gonna make sure I'm missing all of this. Oh, Kimberly says, I love the large sewing space on your machine. Me too. This is so fun because it really lets me put the blocks here. If the block is too big, then I usually build it on this side on my table so that I do have it kind of right there. Or you can bring over, like if you have near your cutting mat the little block boards, you know, the little batting boards, you can use those as well to move your blocks around to make sure that, you know, from cutting to sewing, your block is looking the way you want it to. Okay, so now that we've sewn all this together, you can see how pretty it looks. And when we press, you can see, because we took the time to be careful with our trimming, we have plenty of space here. We have a nice 1/4 inch that our block sits down from the edge, so when we go sew that sashing on, it's not going to eat any of your little star point there. So let's go press this.
Okay, so easy peasy. How do we press this? So we're going to press these out. And if you feel like that's too bulky for you, you can trim those little chain threads and press your seams open if you would like to. You don't have to on this block. These are laying pretty nicely, and we were careful to not go crazy with our seam allowances so that when we turn it over this way, we're just going to hit it with a little shot of this little flatter spray starch that I like, and then press, and it's going to give us a nice pretty block. There we go. Doesn't that look sweet, you guys? So now all you're going to have to do is put your sashing on, and I'm not going to do that today because it's just really simple. So you're going to sew the F pieces on the left, I don't know where they are, left and right sides, and then you will sew the G pieces on the top and bottom, just like that. And that will build out the block so that you have a 12.5 inch unfinished block. So that is the star block. Let me show you what one looks like all done. Here we go. So you can see how trimming really makes a difference in the block, and it makes it so that if you've got this point centered on your ruler, then you're more likely to not lose any of your little points in your stars. But I want you guys to give it a try and let me know how it works for you. You can come back and leave comments here, or you can leave comments in the Facebook group, or you can just email me if you want to. But I would love to know if this works a little bit better for those of you that were worried about your star points, to see if it's a little bit, just, you know, having a few tips makes it easier for you guys. So I hope that was helpful. Teresa says, I'm a good teacher, good speaking voice, and you simplify instructions. Oh, yay. Thanks, Teresa. Yay. Cynthia's here from Ohio. And Vicky says, love saving the points. And Lisa loves flatter spray. Me too. Jackie, I spray flatter on the front most of the time because I'm just kind of doing that last press on the front, but you can definitely use it on the seams. It doesn't matter what side you use it on. Whatever you feel like is better for you. So, doesn't matter. Okay, so that... Where are we? That is the block for today, the star block. So let me show you, before we do giveaways and updates, in a minute we're going to do like blog updates and fun things that are going on, but I want to show you our schedule real quick. So here is our schedule. So this is the Melody Lane quilt. This is what it looks like, if in case you didn't notice behind me. And this is the star block week. Next week we are going to do the chain block, which is the flower block that has the chain incorporated in it. And so it makes this beautiful quilt so easy and fun to put together. And then the February 10th, we're going to talk about assembly and borders. So an assembly on this quilt is so easy, you guys. You're going to love it because you don't have to sew sashing between these blocks. There's no sashing between the row blocks, and there's no sashing between each block, and there's no sashing between each row. It's all incorporated into the quilt. So it's so fun, you guys. It's really, really fun. No, Leslie, I don't do any starching prior to cutting, but I know a lot of people who do. So if that's your jam, that's totally fine, but I don't do that. Okay, so that is our sew along. So I have a few things going on, excuse me, on the website in addition to our current sew along. And so they are, the first is that I am sewing along with the RBD Block Challenge sew along, which is a sew along that Riley Blake Designs does every year. They start in January and it goes till May. And it's a really fun sampler block quilt. And each block is designed by a different Riley Blake designer. So the first week was designed by Lori Holt, and last week was designed by me. If we have any, I always say me like that. Does anybody watch Psych? I love Psych. It's one of my favorite TV shows. I rewatch it often, but I always say me in a funny voice because that's from Psych. So pardon me for my weirdness. So last week was Lori's block, and look how cute that is. I'm sewing along with Melody fabric, so there's a lot of Melody all over the place right now, and it looks a little sort of angled. That's just because of the angle that my overhead camera is at. I promise you it's a square block. It just looks a little bit weird because of the angle that the camera has to be at. So this is Lori's block, and I fussy cut a little bird for hers. I think it's called Bloom and Grow. These are all free block patterns, so you can find them all on my website, links to all the patterns. And then this is my block from last week. It's called Around the Corner, and it's my take on a pineapple. Usually a pineapple block kind of really comes more over into each strip around it. So it's a little bit separate. It's just a little bit different take on a pineapple. Very similar. But it's really fun to sew, and it looks complicated because you're like, all these stitch and flips and all these little strips. But I promise you, it's really simple. Cindy Cloward, the Riley Blake Designs owner, is doing a video every week, so you can check out the Riley Blake Designs YouTube channel. There's a ton of resources on there too. If you guys aren't already following Riley Blake on YouTube, I highly recommend it. But she is doing video tutorials, so all the designers don't have to, really. You can just go check that one. And so this is Tuesday's block from last week, and then there'll be another block releasing this week, which is from Jennifer Long. And so it looks like I'm only using the blues and greens because that's what sort of has happened so far, but this week we're going into the yellows and pinks. So if you check out my website tomorrow, I will have my version of Jennifer Long's block tomorrow. So that's super fun and exciting. And then the other thing is I am sewing along with Lori Holt's Quilted Snowman sew along. And it's fun for me to do these with other people's quilts because, like I kind of explained to you guys last week, my quilts that, like the one behind me, are my work quilts, which means that I don't get to cuddle with them. But when I make other people's quilts or I make other versions of my quilts, then those I get to keep and play with. So it's fun for me to do. So I'm going to show you, so these are the first blocks, and these aren't all of them that you're making this week. This is the twirling snowflake, I think, and these are the little snowball blocks. I'm sewing along making Lori's Quilted Snowman with my Dainty Daisy collection, and I'm using the Songbird, which is kind of a very light blue-green, as my background. So these fabrics are all my background fabrics. So I made up an image of the quilt the way it's going to look when I finish sewing, so I wanted to show you guys that. So this is Lori's pattern, and Lori's is of course done in all of her really great fabrics, but I wanted to use Dainty Daisy. So everything on there is Dainty Daisy except for the snowman, and I used Hush Hush fabrics for that. So when I start sewing that, I'll be grabbing from Hush Hush 4, I think is what's in there. And so that's really fun, right? I was super excited to use that blue background and then to have the little snowman, who I am saying is a girl, in her pink wagon and her little blue scarf. And I'm just really excited to sew along with this. So it's going to be a long sew along, which I'm not sad about. Because we're sharing blocks every month. So I think there's going to be 2 different types of blocks we do each month. I haven't looked fully at the schedule, but we're only sharing them once a month, which is great. And so it goes till November. So we started this last Saturday in January, and we're going to sew all the way through to November. So by the time we're done, we're going to have be able to put up our cute little snowman. And the other thing I love about this quilt is it's not necessarily Christmassy. I mean, it's cute for Christmas, right? But it doesn't have to be. It can easily go like January and February with the colors you pick and the style of it. So, because, you know, we can build snowmen. Well, not this week, but last week we could have built snowman. So that's a fun one, and I have linked to that. Did I link to that in today's video description? If I didn't, you can just go straight to my website, flamingotoes.com, and get all the information. So you can see my version of the quilt, and you can also find links to Lori's version. You can still buy kits for the Quilted Snowman at Fat Quarter Shop. They're the ones running the sew along. Or you can pick up Dainty Daisy if you want to make up your own, or, you know, use fabric from your stash. The beautiful thing about that quilt is it would be so great scrappy. I mean, they're kind of scrappy anyway, right? So grab your stash and sew along. It'll be fun. All right, you guys, those are the sew along updates. And this week also I'm going to share a fun little version of a free Fat Quarter Shop Valentine's mini quilt that I made that I love, and I used Berry Market for it. So I'm excited for you guys to see that. And that's it, I think. But let's have giveaways. Should we have giveaways? I think we should. Okay, so my giveaways are super easy to enter. All you have to do is leave a comment on the video, and that counts as your entry. And you can do that live or later in the week, so really easy to enter. And the more times you comment, the more entries you are, but they can't be like just emojis or whatever. I'm not going to count that. So I have, and again, I have my ceiling fan on, so I apologize for the little flashy flashies here. So this is last week's giveaway, and I'll announce the winner in just a second. But this is Blossom Lane by Catherine Linnaeus. She's a Riley Blake Designs designer. This is a gorgeous collection, you guys. You can kind of see all of these florals. They're really pretty. There's some little envelopes with stamps and super cute little doors. I'm a sucker. And keys. Oh my gosh, it just says Home Sweet Home, right? And all these extra little like blender fabrics. And it's a really pretty color palette too. One of those palettes that I think is good any time of year. So that is a 10-inch stacker, same thing as a layer cake. I have a turn dash binding holder. These are from Riley Blake Designs. They're acrylic, so they're very strong. And you can just put your binding on there. You can probably get two bindings, because you could do one this way and one this way, or you can use this little hole as a hanger. Sorry, it's very flashy. Oh, it shows you. Look, there's instructions. And then I also have I can't get in here, a Liberty sewing kit for you guys. So this is Liberty Fabrics, and you guys might not know, Riley Blake Designs is the official retailer for Liberty quilting cottons. Not like cotton lawns or anything like that, but quilting cottons is all through Liberty, through Riley Blake from Liberty. So we have some really cute notions. So this is Darling, and it's a really cute little travel sewing kit. So it has needles and safety pins. It has very pretty little scissors. I don't know if you guys can see it, but there's like a little edging on there on those scissors. And then you get a measuring tape and fun little zipper bag that you can put all the things in. So this is this week's, and you can find these in stores. So if you can't find these, check with your local quilt shop and they can order these. And there's cute different little patterns that they have made these up in. So they're just darling. So this week's giveaway winner is Kimberly Joyner. I think I saw Kimberly on there. So Kimberly, send me an email, bev@flamingotoes.com, and we'll get your prize out to you in the mail. Yay! And then for this week, I have a Sew Sampler box for you guys. And I've been holding on to this one because I considered keeping it, but I decided not to. Your gain is my loss. Wait, that's not right. I don't know what that. So this is the sampler. So Sampler is from Fat Quarter Shop. You can sign up to get these monthly. And they're super fun. I love them. There's just littler projects or throw quilts or runners or different things like that. This is April's box of last year, and it's gorgeous, you guys. I'm a super big fan of Heather Briggs of My So Quilty Life. This is her Fat Quarter bundle. I think it was her first collection. So this is Flower Girl. Look at these colors, you guys. Is this not just like delicious? I love, love, love it. So you get this Fat Quarter bundle. You get a needle minder from her. I also am a big fan of needle minders. Look how cute this is, you guys. This is so happy. Isn't it darling? You get the stabilizer for this Quilt As You Go kit for this crafty clutch, and it comes with the zipper. You get a darling sticker that says Fat Quarter Shop. You get this little So Creative journal, which is so helpful, you guys, for keeping track of projects you want to make or projects that you're in the middle of and you're like, why did I buy that fabric? I don't even remember. But there you go. And then you also get a quilt pattern. And look at this quilt pattern, you guys. It's called Bobbin Blooms. And it's little flowers on top of bobbins. I mean, stop it, right? So you get all the instructions. Now, you do have to buy a little bit of fabric for this, but it's not crazy, so I don't think you should stress. You need background fabric, and then if you want to get a matching print for binding, that's all you need. And then the Fat Quarter bundles. So I figured it was okay to give you this late because it wouldn't be that hard to get background fabric and then find if you can't find this coordinating exact binding, you could find a pretty peachy binding. And her collections that are out now, I think, are similar color palettes, so you might be able to blend that way. So there's also a quilt block in here that's part of an ongoing series that they do in each Sew Sampler box. So very cute, very fun. And this is for you. So all you have to do to win is enter, and I will announce the winner next week. And we'll have another giveaway, and it just never ends. All the giveaways all the time. So that is this week's prize. Hope you guys like that. Isn't it a good Sew Sampler box? It's one of my favorites, and I really did debate, obviously, for a long time on whether or not I was going to keep it. But I love you guys, so I'm giving it away. You're right, okay. You're lost. Oh, Melissa says she made that one. It's a great one. Oh, that's fun, Melissa. And Pamela collects needle minders. Super fun. And Heather says that was one of her favorite Sew Sampler boxes of 2024. I hope you guys don't mind then. Some of you might have already gotten it. Well, if you're very sad, then I will come up with, if you're the winner and you've already got the box, we'll work something out. Okay, you guys, this has been so fun. I hope it was helpful. We'll be back next week for our flower chain blocks, and then we're almost done with this quilt, which makes me sad. But it's been super fun, and we're going to move on to even more, well, not even more, but just as fun, exciting things. So I hope you guys have a fabulous week. You stay warm, and I will see you next Monday. Thanks so much, everybody, for tuning in. You guys just made my day. Have so much fun this week. I'll talk to you later. Bye, everybody.